Welcome to the Sourcing Exchange, where we connect, share, and discuss insights that shape the future of sourcing in the apparel industry.
Welcome, Jacqui, and thanks for making the time. I really appreciate you joining us. One question I wanted to just kick off before I ask you about your background is personally, I've really enjoyed some of the content you've put into the social space. Normally, I'm reading your content when you're on a trip or you've just finished a trip, and you're sharing what you're observing. I really, really enjoy that content, but I also noticed that lots of other people enjoy it. I don't think you're out there trying to build an audience, but I suspect you have a little audience because lots of people comment or connect with the post. So I thought I'd make that comment and just say, in that regard, have you had any interesting feedback from people, or in just sharing your insights, has anything come of that from you from a personal perspective?
Well, first of all, Paul, thank you for having me on here today. Yes, so I write these articles when it's like I get a swell inside me to land something to share. And it's often happening when I'm visiting a country that I'm doing some sourcing in, or things are happening. And I will suddenly get this, gosh, that there's something there to put out there. And I just do it. And, I try and find a picture and a little, I write it, I might edit it once, but I just put it straight out there because there's a pertinence about whatever the topic is that I've written about at that moment in time. So I don't wait, I don't dwell, I just do it. So actually quite spontaneous. And I can go for weeks and months without putting anything out there. But then when I do put it out there, the reaction I get is quite engaged from people. There's a lack of negative feedback in the main. So people are interested at the perspective you're landing. And I guess that's where it comes from. I'm seeing something that I go, oh, this is super interesting. Put it out there. And it's new to other people as well.
Yeah, I picked up on some of your commentary about automation.
Mm-hmm.
I see that's one area that you've got a keen eye on across the
Mm-hmm.
geographies. Would there be a couple of other topics you notice you gravitate towards?
I think during COVID, there was a level of insight we had that we shared. Um, it's interesting. I was in Prato recently, and I haven't done an article on that one. I didn't quite figure out how or what to land, so I left that one alone. So also, I'm cognizant of the fact that I think I should be doing something and then chose not to. So there's active choices there. No, but it's about newness, and it's about or seeing something. So I did a silly one in Bangladesh with an overloaded lorry because I was pissed off at how reckless and dangerous with no governance over health and safety. So that can also tick my boat. So yeah, different things spark me. But seeing newness, seeing machinery is fantastic because you're seeing this standardization of quality that is magnificent that comes through with the automated machinery.
Yeah, okay, very good. Very good. Perhaps just for the context of those listening, did you want to share a little bit about your history? Share where you started and what you love,
Mm,
and the journey in
okay.
general.
So I did a degree in geography, specifically human geography, which is about people, location, developing countries. And I had a passion when I started working for product and the commercials of doing business. And I went into retail with Habitats as my first employer in stores, and then migrated over to Debenhams, and in Debenhams did stores, and then moved over to head office and worked with external businesses, concessions that we gave space to trade in our stores. And from there, I learned insight about what the supply chain of these businesses looked like. And one day I met a guy from a linen business called Color Roll, and it was the MD, and he'd just returned from 3 years in China. And it was like a light bulb went on. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to go and do sourcing overseas. We're lucky enough for him to land a position in Bangladesh. And I started putting feelers out about what were the opportunities in Bangladesh. And this is 2004. And we took a big gamble and went. And when we moved there, Tesco were opening an office. And I was lucky enough to land my first role with them to lead the sourcing of the Tesco International Sourcing Office in Bangladesh, based in Dhaka in 2005. And that's where my sourcing career started. So I've been doing sourcing now, working for different retail businesses for 20 years.
So I love the thread, study of geography. I mean, I hope I'm not oversimplifying it. I suspect there's a very kind of neat linkage between studying
Yeah,
geography and sourcing. So
absolutely. There's a passion for people, location, developing environments, different cultures, and understanding how business works, and then intertwining that into how different cultures work together. Because a key part of the job I do is making things happen in different cultural environments and navigating people, personalities, ways of working that are also different between all the countries that I operate in.
yeah, sounds like a win-win because it allows you to continue on something that you kind of
Mm,
uh, deep down passionate about, but at the same time, sounds like it equips you to be a really empathetic
mm,
sourcing
mm,
executive.
mm,
Uh,
Well, business driven. I mean, I'm probably not as empathetic as I should be.
Hey, a question that does spark for me because you talk about starting in the stores and with the concessions
Mm,
and then working through. What's the path or how would you articulate the path for getting into sourcing? As in I
wow.
was going to ask the qualification, and I wondered today, if someone was younger and wanting to start a pathway to becoming a
Mm,
sourcing executive. I'm sure the path is
mm,
different. I'm sure it's
mm.
different. But perhaps what was your path? And I don't know if you see that, how things have changed
Yeah.
now.
Well, there's a certain amount of bravery that comes into it because at some point, if you're a Western person living in the West and you want to go into sourcing, then it involves this physical transition to living in a sourcing country, which is a big change. Um, in my recent past, I've met a Dutch guy who used to work for a part of our business, and it was coming up as a merchandiser within our brand, but he had a fascination with Bangladesh, and he would talk to me about how it was to operate in Bangladesh. And he connected into a person who was running a business in Bangladesh and needed help on the ground. So he, at the age of, I think, 25, moved out to Dhaka from the Holland and started to oversee a Dutch sourcing business in Dhaka. So you relocate, so that difference in living environment, the way the craziness of Bangladesh, for example, is so different to what you come from. So there's a massive change you have to undergo. You leave behind family and friends, and you have to adjust, and then you have to figure out how to survive and then succeed in that role when you're up against people you don't know, working with suppliers, working with all the problems and challenges and speed that needs to be driven. So it's a big thing to put yourself through, and all that requires absolute passion and energy for people, product, and the commercial aspects of the business.
Do you mind if I add one more question on this topic? It kind of leads me to think a little bit about the challenges. Often I see this sourcing executive role as much like a conductor of an orchestra. Uh, the success of the role is that ability to work with buyers and designers and product developers, but also suppliers at tier 1, tier 2,
Different
maybe tier
cultures.
3.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And how do you, I find some sourcing executives come from manufacturing. And so
Mm,
to that extent, they can talk the talk and really empathize with the supply base. But I don't know, perhaps discussions with buyers are more difficult, maybe. In this story that you've just shared here, the young gentleman, he's starting his career without that experience. And he also doesn't have the, I don't know if he has the history of working with designers, right?
mm.
Uh, I
He
don't know.
he
Yeah.
was thrown in at the deep end. So you get, when you have the passion, you figure it out. Um, you put the energy in, you learn, you're open, all those soft skills that are so important to how you operate when you're dealing with other people, especially navigating unusual situations. And he's still there doing the job, and it's growing and growing. And I'm very proud to see that he's a guy that's really, there aren't many young people that come from the UK or Europe actually coming out to do these roles. And I've been very proud to see him navigate and grow.
I would, interestingly, the more and more sourcing execs I talk to, a lot of them start with that inquisitive nature, that innate
Hmm, hmm,
exploration, and I think a certain, I guess, maturity to get hands dirty and try and create something that perhaps
hmm.
they're yet to have lived through. But I might, you and I were chatting just before I hit the record button a little bit about the day in the life. If I kind of build on that last question, last week you were touring factories in Bangladesh, and next week you're hosting buyers and designers. Are you able to just provide, from a day in a life perspective, I don't know, two or three things that you lived through in the factory tours, and then what are you expecting to live through when the buyers and the planners and the designers visit you next week? Because I think they're kind of both ends of the hourglass per se.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so factory visits in Bangladesh, we were dealing with some operational challenges that we have, and I needed to get in and meet the owners and see for myself how to come through the production challenges that we were facing. Um, we had 2 days of that, which was actually quite tough. And then that was balanced off with visiting a new supplier that was really quite impressive. And I was quite blown away by the opportunity and investment that this supplier is doing. That, when you're dealing with problems, it's kind of quite tough to say, well, how do we move through this? And then you visit a supplier that's full of opportunity, and that's actually really exciting. So you've got the hard energy of dealing with the issues, and then you have the art of what is possible, which gives you a load of energy back. And then we had another day visiting suppliers who are doing some good work on product preparation, ready for buying meetings. So that was Bangladesh, always full on, always intense, always operationally challenging. Now, next week we have buyers flying in. And so we're in the process of preparing samples, and this is into China. China, by comparison to Bangladesh, is quite organized and efficient and effective. So, in theory, the activity of moving people to right location is a lot more straightforward. Product should be prepared, pricing should be pre-prepared, and the meeting should be fairly good, with hopefully good outcomes. We're taking a team to visit a new supply that's doing fitness products. And then we go to an excellent supplier we work with who's very, very good on product development and really understands the value added of bringing design to the buyer and working and developing business opportunity from what they see are the trends coming into autumn winter 26. And then that will roll forward for 3 weeks. We have, I don't know, 20 buying meetings planned in the next 3 weeks with different buyers. And yes, some will go well, some will be particularly tough, and you have to navigate expectations, results, and hopefully there's a level of smoothness with operationally how it is. And we do our best to help optimize the margin opportunity for the business.
Yeah, okay. Clearly no shortage of hard work and preparation, 20 meetings in that short space of time with a broad range of stakeholders. If I switch topics a little bit and just go more holistically around the state of fashion and the state of our sector, how would you summarize where we are today at the more strategic level?
So we've had the impact of the tariffs from the US, which has really made the industry look at who their customers are. And conscious calls have been made, I think, both by suppliers and also by customers, be it US or Europe customers. You know, do you grow? Do you hold back? Do you reduce? Do you stop? And it's been a year really of navigating if the customer's leading the decisions or is the supplier leading decisions, mostly the customer's leading the decisions. But suppliers are having to reshape how their customer base mix is. So most of our suppliers are not too dependent on the US, but some are. And you know, you have a supplier who's 60% of his business is into the US. In general, if he's a Chinese supplier, his business has gone down this year. So his job is to be finding some other customers to balance against that. So it's been hard. And I think also if I look at Bangladesh, which has a strong American demand, but has been hit quite hard by duties, those suppliers that are US dependent have been worried about losing business. But actually, where does the US go? You know, if you're looking at denim, in terms of global production capability, Bangladesh has the capacity. And many other countries may have some denim capability, but capacity less, capability potentially less, traceability, you know, being able to see into the supply chain can be harder in some countries. And it also takes time to build production capacity in other countries. So a country like Egypt, which has got less duty now from the US, looks potentially interesting, but setting up denim manufacturing and laundries offshore in a country like Egypt also takes time, takes investment, takes know-how, takes skill set, takes a bucket load of training, takes time. So some of the changes don't happen as fast, and therefore, actually, the suppliers working with the US are still working with the US, but there can be strategic changes that will carry on to happen over the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. Once the dust settles, you wonder if people will go back to how it was. But it's certainly it seems like the last 9 months, it's really distracted a lot of people. It seems to have brought up some themes around. I see some people leaning more into this idea of strategic partnerships, and I see some people leaning less into it. Some people see the need now to de-risk and diversify, where others are saying, no, this is your chance to do more meaningful things with those who you work with. Is that, I mean, that's one strategic question that's arisen. I'm not sure. I mean, I'd love to hear your comments either on that or whether you think other strategic questions have, like, or is it just wait and see for some people, or is it finally? Yeah, I'll hand over to you.
I see two types of suppliers out there. You've got forward-facing suppliers, and then you also have suppliers that are into the hub and spoke sort of model, whereby it can be a China-based supplier with production that's been historically in Vietnam, Cambodia, possibly Myanmar. And now they are saying, okay, strategically, I need Egypt added in. So there's been a lot of sourcing activity we're seeing going on out in Egypt, which needs time to develop, okay? And then on the other hand, we have suppliers that aren't interested in going offshore, but prefer to be good at what they do, but they're future facing into the future and investing in the automation and the efficiency of making their business output better with the limited resources that they have, and investing in technologies to drive their capability further.
Yeah,
So two types.
yeah, it feels like in some kind of crazy way, all of the disruption that it's occurred is helping people sharpen their thinking on how
Mm,
to win. So potentially
mm,
at the end of all of this, uh, well, for some, hopefully they've ended up with a better operating model, either as a manufacturer or as a retailer, whether it's choosing where they make or how they make.
mm.
Um, I tend to think the same thing happens on the consumer end from a retail perspective, where I hear some cases where retailers and brands are thinking more deeply about their assortments, their pricing composition, their good, better, best. In a similar way, I think they're getting more focused, more well, I mean, they've always been focused, but just continuously improving, perhaps at a slightly more rapid pace, because the alternative is they have to absorb all of this potential cost
Mm,
increase, right?
mm, mm. Yeah, what we're seeing practically is pressure on fabric prices to be more competitive. So that helps manage the final price. And also, what else can they do on the CMT costs that helps make the retail FOB price less, so that it mitigates less of an impact on the final price to the customer. So I think certainly lots of work has been done there, and each retailer will be taking their own business model forward on that.
Mhm. Hey, can I ask you a question about like a bit of a pet topic? I have this point of view that fabric's the most obvious and untapped area for retailers and brands. I know not for all, but more than not don't have a very focused fabric game plan. I would say
Yeah.
30% of the industry do and 70% don't. But fabric is 50 to 60% of the cost. It's where all the carbon's emitted. It's where the quality proposition comes to fore. I mean,
Mm,
there's so many
mm,
great reasons to talk about fabric, but it seems to
mm,
be the last one in the queue. I don't know. I'd
mm.
love to hear your perspective on that.
So, yeah, I mean, it depends what type of business you are, the products you sell. So, I work for a business that's more focused on driving fashion, and the fashion can be the shape, it can be the fabric, it can be the color, it can be the pattern, the print. And we're there to create that product. Now, obviously, where you can leverage fabric, buy fabric ahead is great. But the reality is we end up working on a lot of different fabrics. So the primary job is to get the right product to market. One of the tools you do to lever that is fabric. But our focus is getting the right product to market, and then we will look at fabric behind that. So the number one factor is not fabric, it's what's the right product, what's the right color, what's the right composition, what's the right weight, what's the right sustainability attribute we're looking on that fabric for our customer. And then behind that, you see how you can leverage fabric.
Do you feel? I mean, my observation. I mean, I love that, and I would echo that though that as well. I just I just don't. I just don't see many not as many as I would have thought anyway, retailers and
Mm,
brands invest in
mm,
it. Like get people who
mm.
have the fabric
Yeah,
skill,
I
who
mean,
have the technology.
yeah, I can give you another example I saw just the other week. I was at a flat knit supplier who works with an online retailer who's really had a strength on cashmere. And they've approached it the other way around because cashmere is big for them. So they go and order the cashmere fiber, and the supplier will buy this tonnage of the fiber, make it into the cashmere yarn, and then that's put into jumpers. So they start with the fiber because it's the core ingredient to their product collection. In the business I'm in, we have many different fabrics, so we don't have that buying leverage to start on the fabric side of it. But some businesses are shaped on singular product or just a handful of products. And yes, with the volume, you can focus on your fabric base and negotiate that quite keenly and definitely bring some strong opportunities in for customers.
Yes, a personal topic of interest, actually. I had to go down that path for a moment. What if we bring it back to it could be either this generative AI topic is big, but also just automation in general, because I mean I know we could go either direction. So what's your thoughts on how that's either shaping the industry?
So in China, the movement in automation has come about, or it's coming about at a level of speed because you don't get young people coming into factories to sew. So young people these days tend to want to go into service industries and selling in different ways. They're a single child of two parents with four grandparents, and the family want the best for that child, and it's not to go and sit in a factory and do a manufacturing job. So this means that you don't get the feed of young people coming into factories. And so what we've observed, especially since COVID actually, is this aging workforce in factories. And I was getting quite worried about what is the future of garment making in China with this state of affairs. And then we started to see these machines on the production floor, and I was like, whoa, interesting. And then over the last 3 years, most factories we work with have started to buy into these machines that do the work of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 garment workers on a machine. And it sparked us to go and visit a automated machine maker and actually look at where they're really at in terms of capability to manufacture. And it takes away the need for skilled labor in a factory because now you just need a product placer that places fabric into a position, and then the machine takes it and does all the sewing beautifully well, lovely quality. It works 24/7, and you get great quality coming off these machines as long as it's all set up well. So we see factories investing in this, and on a piece of outerwear now, for sure, 60%, 70% of the garment can be made with automated machinery. This is a capital cost, so you need a supplier who sees the long-term business opportunity to invest and write down the cost of the investment in the machinery. But at the same time, it means there's less dependency on the labor skill, which is where China was having a problem. So with definitely China, we see that moving forward at quite a rate. And the development in the new machineries, we're often seeing new machineries on top of that. So it starts, but there's so much opportunity here. And then I was in Bangladesh, as I said last week. And even in Bangladesh, where you don't have the labor problem, we see these machines coming into play. And it's impressive.
Can you paint a picture? Can you paint a picture on perhaps some of the machinery you're referring to? Like what's a piece of machinery? How does it work? Just to try and visualize how it fits in the production line.
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 times the size of a traditional sewing machine, and it has automated. So the needles automated. You have templates. And the machine is programmed to go inside these templates following the pattern of the product. So it does one bit and then it stops, and then it might fold over and then sew another bit and fold over again and turn it around. So it's really working as if the hands would, but it's all done by, yeah, these automated parts. It's great. Very
I
impressive to see.
I saw someone was presenting a little while back on where the investment into automation is going by geography, and
Mm,
from memory, it was like 95% China.
mm-hmm.
And I think what you're saying is the innovations coming. You're seeing the innovation come out of China. You're
Yes.
seeing it move in. You've cited Bangladesh as an example. Did do you think are you seeing something in the early stages that the other geographies are just starting with, but China has a 3 or 4 year advantage? Is that what it
Yeah,
looks
for
like?
sure. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I was in Madagascar earlier this year. We saw it there, but again, there was a connection into China with the factory general manager. So, where you've got Chinese know-how in factories, you will start to receive these machineries in, because the Chinese will buy into these opportunities because it's production efficient. So yes, China is the start of it. Bangladesh uh, will follow, just because they do try to become more efficient. Cambodia, which is and Vietnam will buy into it again, because the owners are often Chinese businesses. So it will spread. And what started off as a real need in China because of the labor crisis moves into an efficiency opportunity for other countries too.
Yeah, and what categories would you say are ruled out? Like where's the limit of the technology?
That's a good question. Um, so it's best on wovens because the fabric is stable, and it's certain parts of knits, small quantities are harder. Um, On flat knits, you can do a lot of automation now, but there's still an element of linking there that is tough, because that would be great to automate. Traditionally, automation needs big volumes to make it cost effective and efficient, but really, we are seeing more and more of it on smaller quantities. Um, for example, if I look at denim, you can do a lot of a denim jean now using automated machinery, but the big key seams stay as being manually sewn. So on a pair of jeans, 70% is automated now, potentially.
Okay. And so then it leans in for me, it leans into two other points. One is uh you've called it out, it requires investment. So I think from the
Mm.
retailer's perspective, um, there's I mean, this topic of partnerships and how willing are retailers to make long-term commitments. I guess in this instance, um, I guess it's just a requirement if you want to. It's either you somehow the
About being
supply.
future facing
Yeah.
and being a supplier of the future. These decisions on purchasing machinery are generally made by the supplier, because they see either the labor solution or the efficiency payback there. And I believe the payback is quite effective in the main, as long as the orders come through that need to use the machines.
Yes. Yes. And so then they've had this macroeconomic um, headwind, which was the tariffs. So they've done something that's proactive, and now it's kind of. But once that settles, um, in theory, it should make these factories much more competitive. And we've seen a shift
Mm.
out of China potentially. I'm not sure if you're seeing it or not, but it kind of implies there could be a little bit of a shift back, because they should, in theory, be a little bit more cost competitive than perhaps they were
Mm.
in the past. Is that how
Mm.
you see it playing through?
It's difficult because retailers, brands will have their own sourcing decisions about where they prefer to see their goods being made. And China can manufacture absolutely anything. But again, companies make choices about geographical regions that they do and don't want to
Yes.
grow business in.
Yes, yes. This is such a good discussion topic for anyone new to the industry because what seems obvious is not so obvious, right? And we used to use this thing, we called it the impossible pentagon to explain the role of a sourcing exec because we called it impossible pentagon because trying to get the best carbon outcome, the best social outcome, the best cost outcome, the best quality outcome, and
Yeah.
agility and risk, I mean, it's impossible. And so it comes back to how you find I guess, the optimal balance between.
Yeah, it's the optimal matchmaking.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're a factory in China, what a difficult decision too, because you're making that investment, which some companies will really appreciate and other companies just by policy may not appreciate, right? So
Mhm.
it really talks to the art of strategy and
Mm,
because everyone has a finite amount of investment that they have, and how they
mm.
choose to deploy that investment is of
But I
quite
think
importance to.
certainly in China, there is a level of encouragement regionally to be investing by local provinces. And I think the policies differ from province to province, but there are opportunities to get help on that journey.
So fascinating. Are you able to touch a little bit on the retail side? And I'll give you a bit of a lead in. Sitting here in Hong Kong, I get to talk to retailers who have shops and who run retail networks in China, relative to those who run them in Europe or the US. And the landscape just appears so different. Um, the way consumers buy, the way they're engaging with Western brands versus local brands. Is that a topic that
Mm.
you're able to touch on a little bit?
Yeah, it's, I would say it's quite tough for Western brands to successfully navigate in China. And different ones have had different experiences. So the reason behind it can be something in the home country on cash flow, or it can be an the local market hasn't responded well. The thing is, in China, you've got the power of social media is very, very strong. You've got the power of TikTok, and this galvanizes people into where they go and make their shopping decisions. Um, you've got, for example, Urban Revivo here, and you've got Zara, and they're similar, but one has perhaps more of an appropriate feel for the local market than the global brand does, or is more in tune. Um, the there are other choices than Western brands, and there's a loyalty in China. However, having said that, you've also got some of the big sports brands, and you see in the news sometimes something is published about a brand, and suddenly people veto going in there. And that sentiment feeling is very strong in China, so that can have a big impact. Um, So it's one to play very cautiously and carefully.
Just,
Yes, it's not easy.
and I know once again, sitting here in Hong Kong, I know a lot of people from mainland China used to come here to buy
Mm,
their
mm,
retail goods, particularly on the luxury end,
mm.
which I think was partially because they knew there was a reputation in mainland that perhaps they weren't getting the real deal.
Yeah.
Uh, I I suspect that might be changing a little bit,
Mm,
or
mm.
is that change? Because that would change the sourcing equation a lot, right? Because if this is the whole China for China equation, which is quite a different paradigm than, sending goods all the way across the world. So I don't know, it's a multi-part question, but
So the luxury brands here have got a fantastic retail portfolio. that's grown in the last 10, 15 years. So you would confidently go into there now to purchase your brand. China's also got the duty-free locations, and it's not, I mean, Hong Kong is there, but there are other solutions now that came about with the time of COVID when borders were shut. So, yeah, it's luxury is difficult, and again, depending on the state of the economy, depends on the state of demand, and it's changed over the years as the how do I put it, the political evolution has happened. It impacts spending ability and behavior.
Yes, yes. What if we take the topic back to technology? We were talking about robotics there for a while. Are you seeing much come through on the artificial intelligence topic?
Yeah, I keep looking. I keep seeing if it can help me with the sourcing landscape, but so far, when I go and ask a question and ask for advice on where to go, it's a very hit and miss in terms of the quality of the answers coming through. So, for example, I was sourcing in Prato recently to take a look, and it told me some institutions or organizations to reach out to, some common sense advice. So that was great. I was looking for a particular news source in Bangladesh on a particular product, and I went in and had a chat with AI, and the answers were really not credible. So I think traditional ways of using your detective skills to find what you need absolutely still matter. But I think it's very much relevant to look at and to ask questions into this world and see what's coming back. So if, for example, you want to understand economic parameters, the data is actually quite good. If you want to know, give me sources, I think it's hit and miss. So it's a developing field, and I think good to work with it, good to ask it questions, but trust your other sources of information and use it as one of the tools, but by no means do not rely on it.
Yes, yes. Very true. If I flip to a different topic, which is sustainability, I'd love to get what's your perspective on current state of play for sustainability?
Yeah, so we're navigating. You have sustainability on product, and you have sustainability in the way factories operate. So two key areas. The EU legislation is driving practice and behavior and obligation. So we are working to comply with what those EU regulations drive us to achieve by certain timelines. So on product, we work to get an element of sustainable yarn into product for our brands. That percentage can increase or evolve, but that's important to our DNA. And then in factories, so the environmental side, we work on water with laundries, so less damage to the environment, less use of water. And the other big area is chemicals and the supply chain. So working to make sure using the right chemicals which don't cause toxic issues with customers or toxic issues into the water supply. Super important. The data that's being recorded on sustainability is also a bigger and bigger piece of work. So in terms of employing people to manage this data, the latest one is on the carbon footprint that we use. And then you go through the tier 1, which is your core production factories, and your tier 2 and your tier 3, which is your fabric mills, your laundries, your embroidery places. There's a scaling out of numbers of businesses that we have to actively understand what's happening there. So what started off as, say, 60 factories becomes 450 factories where you're looking at insight on sustainability. So it's a big piece of work that everybody's dealing with on this.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, I was going to ask you the biggest challenge, but I think you just articulated the biggest challenge when you talk about that
The
proliferation
scale, yeah, yeah.
and and then you rely on technology, and I think the technology companies who are leading the race still are making progress, but still haven't put their finger on the final solution yet. I'm not sure if you see it the
Yeah,
same way.
I mean, we haven't made a call yet on which technology provider we'll go with because the goalposts moved with the EU regulation timing. But at some point we will. But meanwhile, we watch each of the providers to see how they're growing and evolving because, as with technology, some will survive and some will
Mhm.
not. So
Yes.
you want to get into bed with the partner that will stay the run and be a growth partner.
But what are you seeing from the factory side? Like, what are the factories telling you in relation to this topic? Are they making investments? Are they waiting and seeing? Uh, what do they need from you? All that kind of
So
stuff.
the tier ones are pretty on it. The challenge is the below that, the tier twos and threes and fours, where legislation hasn't necessarily engaged them, or because they're behind the tier ones, they haven't measured things in certain ways. Uh, it's a challenge. And, for us, we try to focus on water and chemicals as the two key areas where we need to be under better control. But there's a lot of work to do. And, they're not governed by the same level of auditing that tier one are
Yes.
governed on.
Hey, we've covered quite a bit of turf in relation to topics. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you thought we should delve into by any chance?
Mm. The role of sourcing. Well, I mean, for anybody that's thinking of going into a career in sourcing, it's an incredibly varied, engaging job. You need to enjoy working with people and having impact, and you need to have a love of product. And, you mentioned the word earlier, be curious about the art of what is possible, be curious about places, get energy from travel and challenging. I mean, for me, it's been the spot on career choice that I've made in my life. Absolutely right for me. But it's not for people who want a stable life and routine, because there is a complete lack of routine. But in terms of an engaging, rewarding, fulfilling career, absolutely superb.
Would you have one story that kind of is a super fond memory? It could be working with the supply base, or it could be working with the retailer and brand. Any fond story you can kind of leave us with as we get to the end here?
I have a little story about my mother, who tried very hard to convince me not to leave the UK and move to Bangladesh. Um, she told me snakes would come into the house in the floods. And she said my hands would get gnarled by the effects of arsenic in the water supply.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She tried really hard. And in the end, I just said, Mum, I'm going. And that was met not so long afterwards with her coming out to visit me in Bangladesh. And she actually said, we are actually very proud of what you've done. So overcoming resistance in family to taking big steps in your career is tough to do, and yet important if you're going to make that step.
Yes. How many years did it take for her to come around?
Mm. I would say officially 6, unofficially 2.
Very good. Hey, I feel like this discussion kind of dawned on me towards the end. I feel like you have to take in so many topics. Uh, it's just too hard to put the profession into a box. I think
Mm,
we
mm,
went from actually we didn't even delve too heavily into emerging markets, which I know is one of
mm,
your
mm.
specialties. But we did touch on a variety of markets, or a variety of roles, use of technology, sustainability. Um, Kind of a nice way to summarize the role itself, right? Is I think somewhere in this discussion you talked about is kind of finding the optimal balance, which
Hmm.
must change month by month to a
Yeah,
certain degree,
yeah, yeah.
and if
It's it's a job that you navigate, and the landscape, it feels like it's different every 6 months. So decisions you're making evolve, and reading that landscape, reading the economic changes, the political landscape changes is important because you you can win on being fast.
yes.
So speed matters when it comes to finding margin opportunity. So a key part of what I do is take this in, and then you engage and talk with the buying team. You source, you go and look, and you find the opportunities, and there's some wins in there. But yeah, you have to see it, sense it, and do it.
Yeah, well said. And it's super relevant today when I mean even our company, we're developing our own agentic solutions, and I think everyone wants to know where that's going also. But this topic, geez, there's so much complexity and diversity at the global level, and it's kind
Mm,
of a classic example of art meets science. It can't be
mm,
all art,
mhm,
but it is,
mm.
geez, it would be hard to be all science, uh, wouldn't it? And I think you've painted a really good picture that every day is different. Um, Experience helps too, doesn't it? Which I guess is one of those questions if we wanted to kind of talk to those leaving university and thinking about how to enter the industry. I think your story about
Mm,
just deciding to pack your bags and plant yourself in a
mm.
market, it's very
That's
valuable. Yeah.
Yes, and I came in with lots of product knowledge and lots of people leadership knowledge, but I lacked totally anything to do with manufacturing. So you learn fast,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
come with something to offer. I think coming in as a fresh university person is tough, but an attribute that you're interested in. I mean, it can be design, it can be manufacturing, a study of efficiency in factories. Come from an aspect that interests you, and then see if that's the way to actually enter it.
Yeah. Do you know, I was chatting I did a podcast recently with Andy Kerr, who's a founder of an agentic company, now strategic partnership with us actually. And we were talking about even grads with engineering or AI degrees are worried, they're like, hey, even this craft's difficult. And we kind of were saying, well, having a multidisciplinary outlook is probably the way to go. So if you get your qualifications, let's say in artificial intelligence, combining it with another degree, whatever that may be, obviously is going to serve you well. But same goes here, right? Like whatever you come in with,
Mm,
complementing it with the right complement, uh, it's a
yeah.
it's a good start.
I
Yeah.
have a girl who's studying design in France, and because I know her, I invited her to come out to China last summer, and I put her into a factory to work on learning how to do 3D design. Now, what made her stay so interesting was her pure passion and wanting to do it. wanting to be out, curious, learning, taking every opportunity she could. And it takes a character like that that will embrace the environment as much as the what you're doing, because the environment is so different and the language is so different. So your attitude to want to do it has to be in completely the right place. Otherwise, it won't work.
Yeah, yeah, and these international engagements, I think if you talk about personal growth, um, geez, there's nothing like being thrown in a foreign
Mm,
culture. I know
mm,
one of my
mm,
first foreign placements was Japan,
mm,
and I kind of concluded that all of the life philosophies I developed growing up in Australia, so many of them were nearly flipped upside down
mm,
living in
mm,
Japan. And it's kind of a little bit confronting to think, hey, I always like fundamentally at the core
mm,
believed
mm,
this was
mm.
right. And then you go to Japan and it's like, oh, hang on, they
Yeah,
really have an alternative view of what's right. And
yes.
yeah, I mean, I
And you
would say,
should respect it within the country dynamics. And I've had exactly the same experience living in Bangladesh for 6 years and then coming here in China, which is very different again. And respect the local way of doing things. It's absolutely critical to you fitting in, and it's respect both ways. And it happens when you don't put yourself forward with your beliefs, but you listen and embrace what's around you.
mm, very good, very good. As always, I can talk endlessly with you, Jacqui, about all sorts of stuff. I do look forward to your next post. I know it's unscheduled and it's driven by the heat of the moment. I do look forward
Yes,
to it. Hey, thanks for making time. I really appreciate it. And you know, for people who listen, none of these questions are really scripted. Some are, but not really too many. So I really put you on the spot a lot. And and
it's fine.
you painted a really lovely and colorful picture of, you know, what it's like to be in a brand and retailer in the sourcing role. I think you did a wonderful job. I really appreciate it. So thank you very much.